Is it okay for me to say that you being in Brazil for the past few decades has contributed to Brazil being a hotbed for FAP?
Wow. Could I have had that much
You have a
influence?
part. You've played a part. I'm assuming.
I must have a part in it.
Welcome back to Act Root to Fruit. My name is Marcel Tassara. I'm on a quest to dig into the roots of the contextual behavioral psychologies, sciences, to help folks get more precise with this work. And for those who want to get past topography and to think more functionally, that's what this project's all about. And today I am speaking with Luc Vandenberghe, who's a professor at Pontific University in Goias, Brazil. My kids are very excited about this, Luke. I don't know if you can hear that.
Mhm.
I am too. I am a great admirer of your work, and especially in your work around FAP groups and the attention you pay to walking the reader through the functional components and the relationships that are happening there. So thanks, Luke, for joining me today.
Mhm. Welcome. Mhm.
Uh, you've been around this work since there was only a chapter to hold on to in the late '80s.
Mhm. Right.
I'm sure it's been quite a journey to see this unfold over
Mhm.
the last few decades.
Oh, yes, it was.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about functional analysis, functional assessment, and then just want to mention too that you and I will be starting a training group together for therapists who want to immerse themselves in FAP through some learning and mostly experiencing the
Mhm.
processes. So just want to mention that, and we'll talk more about that later. But so yeah, let's get into it. I'm someone who came to ACT and was really enamored with it, and have been really trying to understand the roots of it,
Uh-huh.
and so
Yes, I
uh,
was there. I was there already when the roots took hold.
yeah, yeah. You are in the roots as they were
Mhm.
forming.
But I wasn't at the right place. I was
Yeah,
at the wrong place at the right time, as they say
yeah,
in the detective movies. Uh-huh. Okay.
yeah. And what as you've seen this evolve over the last few decades, what utility is do you see for clinicians to to have a grasp of the roots?
Mm, it having a grasp of the roots can both help and hinder. I see you can do ACT. I see people doing ACT very well. Excellent ACT therapists who have no sympathy, not even much knowledge about behavior analysis.
Hmm.
And I see behavior analysts who recently came to ACT and who make a mess of it, because they continue thinking in terms of ABA, basically,
I see.
of teaching abilities and reinforcing topographies,
Mm,
a little bit as you do with, well, it's traditional ABA.
hmm. Okay.
So
So
it can both
s-
have help because, well, you learn to think. Uh, if you already know how to think functionally, that obviously helps.
mhm.
If you understand the history, if you understand how the concepts of cognitive fusion come from research on verbal control
Mhm.
from the 70s onward, that obviously helps. But if you stop there, I think it hinders.
Okay.
That's ACT. Well, in FAP, it's easier because there's not much of a superstructure. You don't have these new concepts taking away ACL, of course. But
Yeah.
I think for a FAP therapist probably benefits of some traditional training in a behavior analysis.
It benefits traditional training. You're saying it's
I think,
helpful. Yeah.
yes.
In terms of what? In terms of seeing past topography and function, or
Yes, that's right. In terms of thinking about functional classes of behavior,
okay.
when you look at this behavior, not only seeing what is happening there in the moment, but seeing a part of a larger class which can be reinforced and understanding that how you react in that moment will influence an entire class of behavior, which will happen in other settings.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said in terms of there being those who are doing wonderful act therapy and don't know anything, and then those who are
Uh,
stifled by
yes, I
the
think so.
advanced adult language kind of.
Uh-huh. In fact, that can happen as well. Sometimes see FAP therapists getting stuck in wanting to teach a certain behavior and coming back session after session after session, trying to teach that behavior, which is really an idea that comes from ABA. And
Mm,
in FAP, you need to be much more flexible. You have to work a lot by intuition.
yeah. Okay.
And you have to
Yeah,
ask yourself, why doesn't that? I thought I was reinforcing that behavior. Why doesn't it become more frequent?
mhm.
And in ABA, of course, and you have to change your technique, make it work, do different things that will reinforce that behavior. And in when you're doing FAP, you have to conclude, well, what I'm doing is not reinforcement. What does that person really need? Maybe they need something completely different, and I'm trying to reinforce something which is simply not relevant for them, which is another way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, and makes me think a lot about topography and
Mhm.
seeing past topography. What can you
Yes.
say more about how what's helpful for people to start to make the leap past topography?
Um, I, from a FAP point of view, the crucial thing is what the person needs.
Okay.
Uh, but, uh, somebody may need attention and do things to get attention, but attention will be only a representative, will only be one item in a vast array of things that are very strongly interconnected. Uh, Somebody who has problems with loneliness, feeling lonely, having friends and knowing people, but still feeling lonely. That person may be helped by getting attention. But if you get stuck in what can that person do to hold somebody else's attention, then you will be stifled because attention in itself is not what a person needs. It's only an aspect of
Yeah.
something much broader.
Yeah.
That is something that is a way that is a point in which you have to look beyond the topography.
Hmm. And
because
in that,
it's easy for the person to learn how to secure somebody's attention. He can learn certain behaviors. They can learn to do things that will hold other people's attention. But that's not
yeah.
it. That won't solve the thing. That's maybe the first step.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you say this, I'm thinking about how difficult it is to see these needs, especially in individual therapy, when the only reporter I have is the client. I'm not, I don't see, what's actually happening in the relationship,
Yes.
and obviously FAP is about, the relationship that I'm having with the client.
Yes.
I greatly appreciate your contribution to the group literature and FAP and your attention to that, because to me, I mean, the FAP is so uniquely perfect for groups.
Yes. Yes. You have much more process in the group. No? Like when you said it's difficult to know what a person needs. In individual FAP, you have to feel it. No? This, for instance, this person is treating me in a way that makes me dislike her.
Mm-hmm.
And her problem is loneliness. So I can start to feel something, and about what she needs. But in the group, you actually see it happening between
Yeah,
the people.
yeah.
So it's much more quicker. You'll have a hold on something you can address.
Why aren't there a lot more articles or a lot more people who are championing the group with you in the FAP community?
I'm not sure about that. One reason may be that the micro analysis you need to do during the group is very detailed. You have to observe and work with many people at the same time. And you have to have their case conceptualization very clear in your head. Because this person is emitting as CRB2. The other person is reinforcing it. So that's great.
Yeah.
But maybe that reaction of that other person is a CRB1 for her. And you have to take care that CRB1 then isn't reinforced. The
Yeah.
other people in the group, you don't allow other people in the group to get away with punishing a CRB2 or reinforcing a CRB1. So you have to think in lots of things at the same
Yeah.
time. Well, that's one
Yeah.
point. Another,
And do that without appearing to have a lab coat on.
yes.
Right.
Uh-huh. And another thing that comes up that may explain why it's not so popular is that the clients need to be very well prepared, because the idea
Okay.
is that the group is the therapist.
Yeah.
But actually, you can't run the risk. You have to prepare people very well. And now with this ACL, you have a language for doing that. You can introduce in the preliminary interviews, you can introduce ACL and use that as a way of explaining how we will want to promote curative
I see.
interactions in the group.
Okay. How I'm wondering about the dangers there of, maybe suppressing someone expressing anger and that being a CRB2 for someone.
Some people will say that expressing anger falls into the courage category,
I see.
rich concept, but it needs to go paired with love and awareness. So
Okay.
the each of these three somehow flattens out the dangers of the other two
Okay.
present.
Okay.
You could have only a very meek, loving group where nothing really happens. Uh-huh. But you, as you taught, you already taught the idea of courage that solves that problem. So
Okay.
ACL is interesting in the preliminary interviews where you give the idea that what we want is a safe, curative environment,
Okay.
but where you can be yourself and where you
Okay.
need to be yourself because we're going to work on that and what you really are.
I mean, I get that that's setting the context,
Hmm.
um, but how necessary is that if we're asking people to be themselves? How necessary is it to
Yes. Uh-huh. It may not be necessary, as I said in my first groups. Like
yeah,
the big danger, and I think I'm getting your question now. The big
yeah,
danger is that you are going to start teaching uh, didactically and to be courageous, to be loving, to be conscious, and that may not fit into that person's case conceptualization. Uh-huh.
mm,
So if you start off with fixed ideas about what the people have to learn in the group, you probably run risk
okay,
losing
yeah.
something that's important for them. Mhm.
And if I'm reading between the lines here, what you're saying is the difference between kind of the original FAP is that that's the case conceptualization is a little bit more open, and the ACL
It's
seems like
completely
it's
open. Huh? It's
yeah.
completely open. You have to see what that person needs in her environment.
Mhm.
According to her values, what is important to her.
Yeah.
It's completely open and it remains completely open. In individual FAP as well, we still continue working like that. And that's the big criticism on ACL. No? Some more traditional FAP therapists say, but this is not FAP anymore because you have you come in with a program with your
Hmm.
agenda.
Yeah. That's very helpful to think about, and I think as we come in, as I come in, and I don't know the history of all these different factions within
Mhm.
ACBS, it's important to just get a sense, and that what you said is, I think, really helpful in terms of considering things from kind of I feel like you're very objective in your stance there.
Thank you.
One of the, so you've written about groups, you've been leading groups for a long time, and supervising students at the university who are leading groups.
Mhm.
I so much love your article, your 2010 pilot study article, and I'll put a link below in the show notes that has a table on page 234 that that delineates what's happening in the group. You give a vignette, and you talk about what's happening for each person in the group, and
Mhm.
it's just such a great way to teach. How do you see the students you supervise? How do you see this benefit them from being a group leader and understanding these dynamics and thinking functionally to then taking that to individual work?
Functional analysis comes quite naturally to some students. But they mostly do very Moller analysis.
Okay,
Uh,
like molecular.
no, it's the opposite of molecular.
Oh, okay, okay,
It's
gross.
very
Kind of,
gross. It's very yes. Uh, I find that students can very easily learn to see that this client complains about her partner for doing this or that, but that the client at the same time reinforces that noxious behavior whenever it happens.
mhm.
So they see that it's not that counterintuitive. Uh, maybe that person tries to suit her partner to avoid worse. And this way she provides positive reinforcement for the noxious behavior. Or maybe she stops doing something that usually bothers the partner. And that way she provides negative reinforcement. Uh, Students grasp that in a moment. And this Moller analysis is quite useful in the didactic ways. You could show someone, so you can show a client that while they want people to pay attention to what they say, they actually punish the person giving attention. Or you can explain saying something like, can you see you are reinforcing the behavior you don't want that person? Can you see how you are doing that? People recognize that. And students do that. Uh, Beginning therapists can do that very easily. But then you get reactions like, so client says, so you want me to reward him for giving me attention? Or, so it's my fault that he doesn't see me because I'm not reinforcing it. But do I need to bribe him into giving me attention? So this is the problem with this Moller analysis. And with these didactical interventions, people feel that you're trying to fix them, and they don't want to get fixed. They want they want to grow. They want to be themselves. But with a molecular analysis, you can better access within, let's say, a microanalysis. You can better access the reciprocity in the interaction. And you can use the experience of the moment. When somebody punishes somebody else's CRB2, you can ask, did you see what you just did? What is happening here? And the microanalysis allows you to go to the process. For instance, like you can ask, what you said now? Behind what you said now, what is it that you want in the moment? Or for that person who received the punishment, you can ask, what did this make you feel? What did this call up for you? And the client will answer something like, she doesn't understand me. She's being mean. She's like my partner. She's like my colleague at work, etc. And then you can ask, what do you need now? What do you need now? Does that resemble what you need from your partner, from your colleague, etc.?
Can I ask a quick question there, Luke,
Yes.
about that? What you're saying? So when we bring this dynamic from out to in or in to out, how one of the things I sometimes I trip a little bit is how directly to ask, because you just ask very directly. How much is
Yes.
this like this? And my mind, sometimes I want to say it, I want to find a way, couch it in a way that's more kind of backdoor,
I teach my students to ask directly. But
directly.
one important point is that we very rarely give the answer, almost never. You asked, what do you need now from her? And how can you get that from her? Shall we? And then you ask the other person, shall we try that out? Can she try that out? Let's see if this works between the two of you. And then, do you think when it worked, you can ask, do you think this could work with your colleague at work as well? Okay. So if you go to that micro level, you don't have to generate hypotheses. You can just look at what happens in the moment, and the person will tell you.
Okay. Yeah.
You can try out what is going to work.
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
if, for instance, the person says, "Well, I will tell her directly how I feel," will that work? Yes, let's see it, and let's try it out.
Mhm.
So Mrs. A tells Mrs. B in the group directly what she feels.
Mhm.
Then you ask, "And what happened now?" And Mrs. B said, "That didn't work for me at all. Now I'm feeling coerced. Now I'm feeling that she wants to boss me around." So, okay, that didn't work. And you can try out different things, because the need is there in the moment.
Yeah.
And you can work with behavior while that person really needs the that consequence,
Mhm.
that interpersonal reaction.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's helpful to hear that.
Mhm.
Not giving the answer. It's so tempting, so alluring to when they say,
Mhm.
"I don't know," to just, well, this is
Oh,
what
yes.
it is. This is the answer.
Uh-huh. You often have very good hypotheses, and then you have to write them down and save them. Uh-huh. And maybe they will be useful in 2 sessions afterwards, 3 sessions afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always work with two therapists. Uh-huh. One who is more active,
Mhm.
and the other one who is more observing, taking notes. There's always too much happening in the group for one therapist to pay attention to everybody.
I wanted to I wanted to ask you about contingencies, and can you talk about detecting these and how you teach folks to consider public versus private in the detection of contingencies? And maybe it's you don't make a distinction, you know.
In fact, we don't make much of a distinction, but people in general don't make much of a distinction, no? Because a very common distortion you see in clients in general, or maybe in general population, is that people believe their intentions are obvious, or that their feelings are obvious, and that uh, people should guess what they need or what they want. But you ask different questions when you want to go to the private, and you ask, what do you need now? Or what do you, or how did this, what somebody else did or said, how does this make you feel?
Uh-huh.
And sometimes that's even that there is some public collateral, something that helps other people. Maybe other people already saw what she needs, but she hasn't paid attention at it yet. And you have
Yeah.
to ask, what do you need now?
Yeah.
For the problem person, for the person to detect what she is responding to, what need she is responding to. Uh-huh. Or how did that make you feel? Uh, Sometimes it's not such an easy question. People have to discriminate somehow. They have to identify somehow how this made you feel. And you have all kinds of disconnects. Like somebody knows she's sad, but she has to learn in the group to identify why she is sad.
Mhm.
What happened before that made you sad? Or I'm angry at you now.
Mhm.
But it's not so easy to identify why. Okay,
Mhm.
it's the public and the private are very strongly interconnected.
Yeah.
But the the person who feels doesn't necessarily uh, know why she feels that, or what she wants to do with that feeling. And that is exactly something where people can grow amazingly when they learn these things. Um, that can change a person completely.
Yeah.
You see this magic happening in these chronic pain groups, where people feel very strongly, literally pain, and uh, they open up when they learn to relate what they feel to what is happening around them, to how they interact with other people, how they deal with important relationships.
And how the pain is steering them.
Yes, it's very different saying, "Oh, well, my pain is worse when I'm stressed." That's very molar, very gross. You can't do much about that. You can't arrange your life not to be stressed.
Yeah.
But when you go directly to what I need now, what what I do, what is the consequence of what I do, how does that make me feel? When when the person learns to make that micro analysis for herself,
Mhm.
she suddenly has something she can change, she can work on.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be able to see someone else in a group
Mhm.
who's do this is really powerful as another member in the group.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you being part of it as well, because you are one of these people she's interacting with.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I want to also mention your article from 2013, the therapist self as context, and I
Ah,
really
okay.
appreciate this like idea, this kind of bringing this into the discussion. Much like Kelly Wilson's mindfulness for two, in the same tradition of really considering our processes that are going on in the therapy room.
Something I find very important is that uh, this contact with yourself as context, it helps you seeing your fears in a way that is not that threatening.
Hmm.
Seeing your fears as if from a distance. No? But on the other hand, as well, seeing your pet hypothesis, no?
From a
Your
distance.
pet hypothesis from a distance, and still seeing them, but seeing that they are, well, this is my pet hypothesis here. If I go along with him, well, I will go to the same place again, always to the same place. And that, so I'm seeing you, but stay there.
Yeah.
This hypothesis, and not letting your pet hypothesis or not letting your fears run your work for you.
Yeah.
But most of all, I think it helps you use your own sore spots and your sensibilities to be able to respond what is happening in the group. Uh, your own wounds and maybe your old traumas, and use them to feel better. That when some client does something and that hurts, or that makes you want to defend yourself, uh, instead of becoming defensive or instead of running away from that
Mhm.
subject and going somewhere else, uh, you can ask yourself why it hurts. And
Yeah.
that can give you information that will be very interesting. Sometimes it helps you improve the client's case conceptualization because you can detect certain behaviors, certain CRB1. That somebody who does not have that wound or that ancient trauma will not detect.
Yeah.
So you can use yourself when you have this distancing. It just helps to decide sometimes what behavior is a CRB1, what is behavior is a CRB2. It can help you decide in the moment what to reinforce and not to reinforce. While acting from self as content, you would be reinforcing what your pet theory says is good and not reinforcing what the theory says is bad, or maybe reinforcing what you like or what you appreciate. Uh-huh. So that is the importance I see of the therapist self as context.
Yeah, and I think it really is a vital discussion to have, because it gives us as therapists a roadmap for how to be with things that come up that really strike at the
Yes.
heart of maybe a struggle that we're currently having, or we've
Mm-hmm.
had for a long time, and it hasn't, quote unquote, been resolved. I really liked your highlighting these well camouflaged contingencies that
Mm-hmm.
pull us into ourselves into avoidance. Like, I have to be the perfect therapist, or I have to present
Mm-hmm.
myself as competent, especially that, for new people to therapy.
I think what helps me think functionally is that uh, you need to your you need to make sense of what people tell you. Mhm. So this person has a good job, or she has a successful store. She does what she always wanted to do. And she has the impression that it's all meaningless.
Hmm.
Um, you have to go to the contingencies to find out what that meaningless means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because topographically, it's all perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I encourage anyone who's wanting to see that molecular dissection of how to think functionally in terms of relationships, to go to some of your work, and
Mhm.
I'll put some links in the show notes below to some of the
Yes.
articles. And on that note, I'd like to just mention this training group that we're gonna co-lead here, and
Mhm.
if anyone's interested in getting into the experience level of FAP, um,
Uh-huh.
that's a great way to learn through doing. Yeah.
Mhm. That will be challenging and it will be energizing as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that I've learned so much through doing, and going through my own processes, and I think
Uh-huh.
that some of the heart of ACT and FAP is really metabolizing this way of being in the world, and seeing ourselves. And I don't
Yes.
know of a better way to do that than in groups, for me personally. So yeah, it'll be part experiential, mostly experiential, and then part didactic.
Yes, what we were talking about is to start every session with some teaching
Hmm.
and then go to the experiential side. So I think what would be needed is that everybody who takes part agrees to bring something of their own problems or their own growth points into the group, and so we can experiment with them.
So yeah, I'll put my contact in below, and if you're interested, reach out. Thanks so much for joining me and sharing your wisdom, Luke. I really appreciate it, and
Thank
I'm
you.
really excited about learning from you and working with you.
Mhm. Thank you. I'm looking forward to what we can do together.
But I'm getting stronger. They take a piece of me, but I'm getting stronger. They They take a piece of me, but I'm getting stronger. They take a piece of me.